till 6. This is Perth Live with Oliver Peterson on 882 6PR.
Second hour of the program. It is great to have your company on Perth Live this afternoon. Coming up this hour, there are some reports that the price of codeine has now doubled since the federal government changed the laws on February 1, that you now require, of course, a prescription for some codeine products, for all codeine products, really. So for the likes of Nurofen Plus now, when you head to, not only have to get a prescription, but then you head to your local pharmacy, you're being charged double. If that's happening to you, let me know. 922 118 882. Joining me in the studio this afternoon, special guest, the leader of the Liberal Democrats and Senator for New South Wales, David Leyonhjelm, is in Western Australia, and he's standing opposite me in the studio on Perth Live this afternoon. Senator, welcome to the program.
Good afternoon, Oliver.
Okay, you're here to launch a book, Freedom's Salesman, which is obviously what the Liberal Democrats and yourself are all about.
Yes. It was an easy book to write, to be honest, because it is all about what the Liberal Democrats stand for. But it's a compilation of speeches that I've given in the Senate and articles that I've written for various publications over the time that I've been in the Senate. So it's sort of a statement of our philosophy, if you like, in bite-sized pieces. So you don't have to start at the page one and finish at the back. You can dip into it as you choose.
And you can scroll through it. So effectively, Liberal Democrats, it's less government, more personal responsibility. And since you've been in the Australian Parliament, the Liberal Democrats' voice is growing louder and louder in the Australian political discussion.
Yeah, almost everybody has an aspect of their life where they're annoyed about the government intruding into them, into that life. So whether it's too much taxes or government waste, too much bureaucracy, red tape, the nanny state, or even things like speeding laws and being applied in the wrong place. Almost everybody's got a grizzle about the government being too big and too intrusive. So I talk about those and people say, hell yeah. So my task is to get people to realise that it's not just that one thing that bugs them. The problem is one of the government just being too big and not leaving people alone, getting out of their lives. You know, the saying is get out of your pocket and off your shoulder, and so do more things for yourself.
I imagine this codeine prescription requirement now that the government introduced February 1 would be something, for example, that the Liberal Democrats would be opposed to.
Yes, I asked questions in estimates about that of the TGA, the Health Department, when it was coming, and they were quite adamant that it was a good thing. But it is typical of sort of things that we go crook about, which is this lowest common denominator. Some people abuse something, therefore everybody's got to pay a price. Same goes for smoking, same goes for gambling, same goes for alcohol, same goes for all sorts of things. A small number of people do the wrong thing, so everybody pays the price. It's the wrong way around. What you've got to, in a society that's based on individual responsibility, you deal with the individuals who misuse that responsibility and you leave everyone else the hell alone. But that seems to be a fairly uncommon thing here in Australia, and it's one of the things that, of course, the Liberal Democrats go mad about all the time.
You do, you certainly do, and I think that particularly if you use the red tape example, and that is a constant story on a daily basis, regardless if you're here in Perth, if you're in Canberra, Sydney, Melbourne, anywhere. Common complaint is, why do I have to jump over these obstacles or these hurdles or fill out this paperwork just to do something that is ever so simple? For example, and we talked to your colleague here, Aaron Stonehouse, in the State Parliament, a bugbear of mine is the fact that you can't go to the shops till 11 o'clock on a Sunday morning.
Yeah, that's a Western Australian thing. That is a peculiarly Western Australian thing. I live in Sydney and they deregulated retail trading hours long ago. The funny thing is the sky's still up there. It hasn't fallen. And families are still families and people still spend time with their kids and doesn't require the government to regulate all that sort of stuff. You know, life goes on. Shops can decide for themselves when it pays them to open their doors and when it pays them to close their doors because there's not enough customers. And customers will vote with their feet and their wallets and support shops that are open when it's convenient to them. That's how a market works. You don't need the government telling shops when they can and can't open. It's ridiculous.
I know there are a lot of issues that are debated in Canberra every single day. I want to start with a question this afternoon, Senator David Leyonhjelm. Let's go back to the citizenship crisis, and particularly there on the crossbench where you sit. You've lost a fair few of your colleagues, and dare I say, some of the more colourful characters. I look at Jackie Lambie, for example, who no longer is sitting in the Australian Parliament. Where this crisis started with the citizenship requirements of elected politicians like yourself. Does it need to be fixed? How urgent is this? Because ultimately, almost everybody who runs for politics could be invalid.
Yes. It is actually a bigger issue than most people realise. And I've been on the committee that's been inquiring into it, the Joint Standing Committee on Electoral Matters. So I've heard from the constitutional lawyers who've come to give evidence and various other people with expertise in this area. I mean, the thing is, we got this problem when the Constitution was written, when we adopted it in 1901. But in those days, the idea of dual citizenship didn't mean citizenship of Australia and Britain, or citizenship of Canada and Australia or New Zealand and so forth. It was countries that we might be in conflict with, Germany or Russia or something like that. So no one actually thought that it would cause us a problem with the breakup of the British Empire. Well, now it is causing us a problem. And most other countries, in fact, nearly every other country in the world doesn't do it this way. They nearly all accept dual citizens in their parliament. Even the English parliament, the British parliament, an Australian citizen who is also a UK citizen, so a dual citizen, can be elected to the member of the British parliament. But a member of the British Parliament or a UK citizen can't be, who's also an Australian citizen, can't sit in the Australian Federal Parliament. They can in the state parliaments, but not in the Federal Parliament. So we are the ones who are at odds, really with the rest of the world here. And for a culture like ours, where almost all of us have come from somewhere else, and not all of us know where our parents were born, and particularly not our grandparents were born. And not all of us can trace our lineage, our ancestry, in the way that many people can. Then there's orphans and there's wards of the state and all sorts of things. It's a major problem. And then if you add on top of that all the people who work in the public sector, so not only is that public servants, but also might mean nurses who work for state hospitals, police, teachers, those sort of people. They're also excluded from running for Parliament. So we've got a huge proportion of the population, those with dual citizenship who don't want to give it up, those with dual citizenship who don't know about it, their parents never told them, they don't even know who their parents are or their grandparents are, who are not eligible. Now, at the last federal election, we had over 1,600 candidates, only 200 and something get elected. 76 plus 150, what's that, 226?
That's it?
Yeah.
Good maths.
That's how many get elected. So there's a large number, 1,200 and something, who are going to be unsuccessful. And yet, if the High Court's rules are applied, every single one of those has to know where their grandparents were born and have renounced their citizenship before they nominate. So if we take the seat of Perth, for example, because we're standing here, 5 people nominated and 3 of those individuals may be dual citizens or may have their Australian citizenship questions asked about those. Let's say we're all relying on preferences for person 4 or 5. Say if number 5 gets up, number 4 may have an argument to say, hold on a minute, if those preferences flowed through to you of an ineligible candidate, we may have a crisis in the seat of Perth. That's a very good point. The High Court hasn't considered that yet, and the general feeling is that may well cause the eligibility of the person who got elected, even though they may not be a dual citizen themselves, to be validly elected because they got in on the preferences of someone who is a dual citizen and was never eligible to be elected.
So if it was a simple...
And you could run knowing you're a dual citizen just to mess up somebody else.
So we could have a real problem on our hands at the next federal election. If it was as simple as the flick of a pen to fix this, I'm sure that all sides of politics, everyone with a vested interest would like to see it happen. But I assume, and you're going through the process on your parliamentary committee at the moment, it is not that simple.
No, it's not that simple. We have desperately looked for a legal solution. If there was a legal solution, it would be supported in a bipartisan fashion, both Labor and the Liberals, because they've both got problems. But no, all the constitutional lawyers say no. The High Court was quite emphatic about it. There is no legal fix. You could pass laws, but if they're inconsistent with the Constitution, then the High Court would find them invalid. This is going to, if we want to fix this, if we want to allow a lot more people to become MPs than the Constitution currently allows, then we're going to have to change Section 44 of the Constitution.
Which will require a referendum. And
yes.
We'll obviously need Malcolm Turnbull standing next to Bill Shorten, standing next to yourself, standing next to the Greens, everybody coming out together saying, sorry, but we've got to do it.
Yes, that's what it takes. Referendums fail in this country unless there's widespread support for them.
Okay. I want to ask you about a couple of other issues while I have you this afternoon, Senator Leyonhjelm. Vaping and the use of e-cigarettes in Australia. There seems to be a growing chorus of anecdotal support, and we hear it on our radio station on a weekly basis. At the moment, though, we do hear from legislators that the science does not back up the ability to say, no, it is less harmful than smoking. But many people will ring me and say, hey, Ollie, it has helped me dramatically over the last couple of years.
Well, once again, I think Australia is out of step with the rest of the world, and that includes New Zealand, our nearest neighbour. They have recently approved it. Vaping is used in the UK very widely. In fact, it's recommended as a way of quitting smoking. Now, the reason that it's better than smoking, and it's not perfect. No one's arguing it's perfect, but it's heaps better than smoking tobacco, is because when you're smoking tobacco, what you're inhaling, or what you want to inhale, is nicotine. That's the thing that gives you the feeling that you like. But at the same time, you're getting thousands of other chemicals in with the smoke. And they're the ones that cause emphysema and heart disease and lung cancer and all those sorts of things. When you're vaping, what you're getting is just nicotine. That's all. And it's not ideal that you're addicted to nicotine, but you're getting the same effect as you would if you were smoking tobacco. But you're not getting all those thousands of other chemicals that cause that harm. So it's not as good as giving up completely. But Public Health England, which is a government body over there, which has assessed all the scientific risks, says it's 95% safer. Now, the reality is that because Australia refuses to accept that notion that giving up tobacco in favour of vaping is actually better, we've got people in Australia who are continuing to smoke tobacco. There are going to be who could switch to e-cigarettes and give up smoking tobacco. The chances are quite a lot of them will get sick and die because of the fact that they're smoking tobacco instead of vaping nicotine. Effectively, our policy is consigning some people to death.
Immigration, it's a debate obviously at the moment on the East Coast in particular. We don't have the similar pressures of house prices that you would in Sydney at the moment, and there are calls to cut the number of migrants that are being allowed to settle here in Australia on a yearly basis. Where do the Liberal Democrats come from immigration policy in Australia?
It's quite a complicated question. Broadly speaking, we're in favour of skilled immigration. We think we think we can import a lot of talented people and benefit from it. There's a lot of entrepreneurs amongst the skilled immigrants, a lot of new businesses, a lot of good things happen because of skilled immigration. So we're basically in favour of immigration, but there are pressures on infrastructure and housing and so forth, particularly in the eastern states. A lot of that is due to government regulation making it hard to build more houses, so supply problems. Infrastructure is also less than optimal, say in Sydney and Melbourne, because of government inaction over many years. If there's one thing a state government should get right, it's infrastructure, and yet they've been asleep at the post. So to blame excessive immigration on government policy or government laziness or inaction or whatever is getting it all the wrong way around. Having said all that, we're not in favour of unrestricted immigration. We'd like to see more countries like New Zealand, where we have a relationship like New Zealand. So New Zealanders can come and live here, work here. They don't become citizens. If they break the law, we can throw them out. We think, similar sort of relationships, say, with England or Netherlands, maybe Japan, something like that. Countries with similar sorts of standard of living to ours would be a good idea. We also have a policy of charging for permanent residents. So, say if you have a family reunion on average, family reunions contribute a lot less to the economy than skilled immigration. So you could say, well, they're coming along, they're going to benefit from all the things everybody else has paid for. They may not contribute that much because their working life is often a lot shorter, sometimes not at all. So why don't we charge them a substantial fee for coming to Australia? We think there's scope to work, especially to go down that path with family reunions. And then finally, our view is that citizenship is too easy to obtain in Australia. So we think Switzerland has quite a lot to recommend it. You have to be a resident there for 12 years. You have to be able to speak German. You have to be recommended by your canton, which is sort of the equivalent of a state over there. You basically have to be accepted that you've, assimilated into Swiss life. Now, I'm not sure we want to go quite down that path, but we do make citizenship really, really easy in Australia. And then once they become a citizen, if it turns out that they don't really belong here, there's not a lot you can do about it.
Well, the solution by Peter Dutton today, the Home Affairs Minister, is that maybe they need to pledge allegiance to Australia every day like we see in US schools. Is that a solution? I
don't think you actually, after you've said that pledge a few times, I'm not sure that it means as much as it did the first time you said it. So I'm not sure that would solve it. I would much rather effectively a probation period of a few years at least. We have, 2 years, I think now is the waiting period from permanent residence to citizenship. Liberal Democrats' policies make that 10. And then, by that stage, if you don't feel as if Australia is your home and you haven't become an Aussie, then perhaps it's not the right country for you.
Okay. Well, we're out of time. There's plenty of issues we could continue to discuss, but if anyone is interested, Freedom's Salesman, your book is on sale, and you do have an event tonight, so we can put people in touch with you and your office. If they are interested, they can phone the radio station 92211 882, and they can hear your speech this evening. David Leyonhjelm, thank you for dropping into the 6PR studio.
My pleasure, Oliver. Can I just mention, if they want to buy a book online, ldp.org.au, we are selling them online as well.
ldp.org.au. David Leyonhjelm, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
From high net worth investors to mum and dad traders, everyone would rather pay less fees. Self-Wealth is Australia's only fixed fee brokerage solution, saving you up to 70% on brokerage fees. Pay just $9.50 per trade regardless of trade size, and count your earnings, not your costs. Self-Wealth has been awarded cheapest online broker by Money Magazine. Compare brokerage fees now and sign up for free. Visit selfwealth.com.au and click Online Trading.